In today's story, there are three protagonists. The first two will witness a moving event indirectly and will try to spread the word as much as possible. The third protagonist will be unaware that someone was watching him, and the unexpected fame he never sought or needed will completely surprise him. Let's start with Elizabeth Milan and her friend Patty Chum. They were both studying law in Jackson, Tennessee. They were known for being smart, friendly, and caring, which are important traits for anyone wanting to help others, especially in family law, like they did. But what's interesting is that their jobs and school did make them special. It was their kindness and generosity that led to an unforgettable experience we're about to tell you. One cold morning in January, when it was really cold and snowy, Elizabeth and Patty decided to meet for lunch. Despite the freezing weather, they didn't want to miss their chance to catch up. Elizabeth even joked that she had a penguin soul because she wasn't afraid of the cold. The reason for the lunch was not important. In fact, they could have perfectly well waited until the weather conditions improved to see each other. However, the young students decided not to wait, as they hadn't seen each other for several weeks and wanted to catch up on their postgraduate family law notes that they were both about to finish. After all, people in the north of the country are more used to dealing with the freezing of winter, so a snowfall warning and a sub-zero thermometer weren't going to scupper their plans. And thank goodness they dared to go out that morning. Otherwise, they would have never been able to witness a scene they'd never forget. As planned, the two women's lunch began normally. They had hot coffee with pancakes with chocolate syrup, while telling each other all sorts of anecdotes. Afterward, they went over their course notes and studied some topics together. They spent more than 2 hours inside the restaurant until lunch was over, and they were ready to go home. And it was precisely at that moment when they asked for the bill that Milan and her friend Patty's lunch would take a spectacular turn. While waiting for the waiter to return with a check, Elisa and Patty, who were still sitting by the window overlooking the street, saw a homeless man sitting on the side of the road with his backpack. The image totally transfixed them, and after that, they couldn't take their eyes off him. However, that would not be the most shocking thing they'd see that day. Fate had one more surprise in store for them that both they and the beggar they were looking at so pitifully through the glass would never forget. Elizabeth was horrified at the sight of the beggar and felt very sorry for him. "Oh my goodness, that man looks hungry, and in this cold, he must be having a really hard time. Have you seen his hands? They're totally destroyed by the cold," commented Milan with pity as she looked at the beggar. "It looks like he hasn't had a hot plate in weeks, not to mention the state of his clothes. Seems incredible to me there are still people who are having such a hard time in our country, and the government's not doing anything to help them," agreed Patty, unable to take her eyes off the man. "Patty, I think we should do something. I don't know. Give him a hot sandwich and a cup of coffee. We want to dedicate ourselves to defending people's rights, and that includes him too, right? I'll pay for it, so at least he gets something to eat and is protected from the cold. What do you think?" Lan suggested to her friend, determined to do something to help the beggar on the street. "Yeah, sure, Lizzie. Let's go outside and ask him how he is." "I don't think anyone else will," Patty replied as she grabbed her coat and prepared to go outside. However, before they knew it and before they could get out to help the man, a police car appeared and stopped right next to him. From the car, a police officer quickly got out and approached the homeless man and began to talk to him. The two friends stood still as they watched the policeman approach him and decided to wait and see what happened before getting out and intervening as they had planned. What they saw next would squeeze their hearts. After spending a few minutes talking to the beggar, the policeman got back into the car. The two friends thought the policeman was going to arrest him for being on the street, but they were totally wrong, and they only had to keep looking to see what was really happening. The policeman was not going to arrest him nor report him, nothing of the sort. What the police officer fetched from the car was a bag of food, a full lunch that brought a smile to the face of the poor man who was having such a hard time. The homeless man who was lying on the ground got up as quickly as he could and gave the policeman a long, tight hug. The two women looked at each other and smiled knowingly as they continued to admire the wonderful act of generosity and service that this policeman was performing. But the man's kindness wouldn't end there. After giving the food and letting him enjoy the taste of hot coffee, the policeman pulled a large bag out of the trunk of his car. Patty and Lizzie were very intrigued to see him pull out the bag, but they both sensed what might be inside: clothes. And indeed, that's what was in it. The officer began to pull out items of clothing with which the homeless man could protect himself from the cold and change out of the dirty, wet clothes. He was wearing a coat, gloves, a large woolen hat with ear muffs, socks, and even some hiking boots. The generosity of this policeman seemed to know no bounds as they continued to stare in amazement at what was happening. Milan had the idea of recording the scene to share on social media and praise the great act of generosity that this anonymous police officer was carrying out. "Patty, we have to record it. This has to be seen by the world. Something so beautiful and important can't be anonymous. It's precisely this kind of act that should be circulated through social networks and not the amount of nonsense and lies we have to see every day, said the young woman excitedly as she took out her cell phone and began to record. Do you think the policeman will be angry? Her partner asked, concerned about filming a police officer without permission. We don't share the cop's name, and he doesn't look good in the video either. I'll simply praise his work and share his kindness. No one will know who it was. They'll only know what happened and that there's still generosity in the world worth believing in, replied Mlan, determined to keep recording and share it all on Facebook to spread her thoughts. The two young women just kept looking while Elizabeth recorded everything by zooming into the maximum. After the policeman handed him the bag full of clothes, the beggar couldn't hold back his tears and started crying inconsolably as he covered his face with a woolen hat. That scene broke McLean's heart, who couldn't help but get excited and began to cry in silence without letting go of her cell phone at any moment. Afterwards, the policeman said something else to the beggar and immediately got into the police car and left. It was just 10 minutes, but what happened that cold morning in the middle of the street would have permanent results that no one could forget. After checking, the beggar kept his clothes and sat down to enjoy lunch sitting on the sidewalk. The two friends returned home and continued with their plans. Upon arriving home that evening, Elizabeth made good on her word and published a post on Facebook narrating what had happened. Imagine you're sitting on the side of the road and for some reason everything you own fits in a backpack. It's -8 degrees Celsius outside. You're alone and hungry. You duck your head to try to forget the hunger cry echoing in your mind, she began by writing. Then a police officer pulls up and you start to wonder if he's stopping because the man did something wrong. You can imagine how worried the homeless man must have felt thinking about everything he could be doing wrong. This is the side of law enforcement that isn't often seen. Social media shows the tragedy but hides the good deeds, she explained. Among all the problems in today's world, we often forget one important thing. We're all human and need help. That's why I decided to share this story, so we don't forget there's still goodness in the world, she wrote. In just a few hours, Lizzie's post went viral with comments praising the police officer and lamenting the harsh conditions the homeless face. God bless that man. The world needs more kindness and fewer politicians who only care about themselves while people suffer, commented one user. For those who need to believe in humanity again, watch this video. It's proof that there's still hope, said another. I'm still wiping my tears. What that policeman did is touching. May God protect him and restore his kindness, added another user, deeply moved. Neither Lizzie, Patty, nor the policewoman sought the spotlight that day. However, the officer's kindness touched more hearts than he could have imagined, showing the difference between action and mere observation. What do you think of this incident? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked the story. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.